Good evening. Welcome in. May 28th, 2020. I hope everybody had an incredible week. It was Memorial Day weekend. I hope everybody got outside. I hope everybody got around people. I know I did. I did not. There was no social distancing. There were no masks. I was surrounded by loved ones. I had a wonderful weekend. I want to thank everybody who watched last week. I want to thank everybody who continues to support this ministry. Thank you so much. There are things happening that you don't know about right now that I hope to announce soon. Continue to pray. Continue to just give me strength and encouragement. I appreciate it so much. For those of you who are watching for the first time tonight, thank you. Welcome in. Your time is valuable to you. Therefore, your time is valuable to me. I do not take anybody's time for granted. The fact that you guys sit down and spend 30 minutes of your time listening to these is much appreciated. Thank you so much. I'm telling you, last weekend, I went to church. No social distancing, no mask. I went to a party, no social distancing, no masks. And I went to a car show. A local businessman had a car show in the valley. And there were a ton of people there. A ton of people. Ton of cars, no masks, no social distancing. It was glorious. God bless America. If you are waiting for the government to do something, if you are sitting around waiting for the government to help you, stop. You have to decide for yourself how you're going to live. Go live your life. Stop waiting on the government. And I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat. The government is not going to help you. Go live. Get outside and do things. Most people I talked to this weekend were out doing something. They were enjoying the weather. They were grilling, having people over, having parties. God bless you. Live your lives. You are in control. You control your narrative, not somebody else, not these stupid orders or all this other junk. Live. Last week's message, we talked about Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future. We talked about the beauty of that verse. What an incredible verse, right? I mean, God's promises. The Lord promises to give you prosperity, to not harm you, to give you hope, and to give you a future. But we talked about why do Christians, why do believers, why do they get saved and 5-6 years down the road, they seem stuck. They have no joy. They have no peace. They're depressed. They complain. They're not living any of this. Why? Because they fail. They forget to understand what's really going on here. And we talked about this, right? It's not our plan. It's not your plans. It's the Lord's plans for your life. God's plans for your life. And I'll come in contact with people who, again, are Christian, and they get mad at this. And I don't understand why you're getting mad at this. Well, I want to do this, and I want to... Listen. I will continue to remind you guys of this. God built you. God built you. people talk about their immune systems right now, right? Our immune system is a huge subject right now. Out of all the creatures in the ecosystem, nothing is more advanced than a human being. We have the most advanced brains. We have the most advanced immune systems. We have the most advanced bodies. Everything about us is top notch. It is a absolute miracle, an absolute perfect work when you think about it. Our immune systems are built to accept clean air. Our immune systems are built to fight off sickness and disease. It's why I get so bent about masks, and especially Christians who wear masks. We're not meant to wear masks. Our breathing is not meant to be restricted. And our hearts are equally wonderfully built. Right? God built all of you. So why would you get mad at God when your plans don't work? Who knows you better than your Creator? God blessed every one of us with gifts. We have gifts inside of us that God has blessed us with. Just like our incredible immune system, we have incredible gifts. God gave each and every one of us qualities and character traits that go along with those gifts. They enhance the gifts. They work in concert with the gifts. Our bodies and our hearts and our minds are an absolute wonderment. Why would you get mad at God for what He has planned for you? He built you. So for all you people out there who bristle at that, for all you people out there that don't like to hear it, nobody knows you better than your Creator. So why wouldn't you let your Creator mold you and form you and get you to the plan He has for you? It's the best plan out there. Not our plans, but the Lord's. And we also talked about accepting. We have to be able to accept God's plans for us. And again, this goes back to nobody knows us better than our Creator. So why wouldn't we accept what He has planned for us? And tonight we're going to talk about something that goes along with this. I want to stay with Jeremiah 29:11 for a few weeks. And by the way, I'm going to announce something at the end of this video, so stick around. I want to stick with Jeremiah 29:11 for a few weeks. We talked about not our plans, God's plans, and we've talked about accepting God's plans. But there's something else that comes with this. There's something else that comes with this verse, and that is the Lord's timing. This entire verse, this entire Jeremiah 29:11, it talks about plans. What is planning? Timing. Time and timing is one of the main factors of a plan. A plan takes time. Plans involve timing. So in order to get to these plans that God promises us in Jeremiah 29:11, we have to work inside the framework of God's timing. And again, people get so mad at this and they get so tripped up at this because it's not our timing, it's God's timing. And we don't want to hear that in today's society. We have been conditioned, especially in America, about our time. We want it our way when we want it. We want it right now, our timing. We are so impatient as a society that it causes anger, it causes dissension, it causes frustration. Why? What are you in a hurry for? Where are you going? You ever watch somebody, they'll be at a stop sign, and you can clearly see that within another 100 yards, there's a stop sign. And they'll gun their car. They're like, race to the next stop. Better yet, don't you love when you're on a piece of 2-lane blacktop and you're going 5 miles over, if to say the speed limit's 55, you're going 60. Somebody comes blowing by you. They're in a big hurry, right? One of the best things ever is when you get to a red light or when you get to a stop sign down the road, that person is directly in front of you. Sometimes I beat my horn. What's up, doofus? Did you get where you were going? I see you got to the same point the same time I did. We're so impatient. We want everything when we want it. And guys, you have to understand, that's not how God works. That's not how the Lord works. Write this down. Every week I tell you guys to write things down. Some of these things, listen, post them to your refrigerator, post them somewhere, put them on your phone, let them be daily reminders. 2 things. 1, the Lord's timing is not our timing. The Lord's timing is not our timing. It sounds simple, but it's something we have to remind ourselves of daily. And this is the big one for the night. Number 2, the Lord's timing depends on you. Huh? Write it down. The Lord's timing depends on you. There is a doctrine that has been pressed into our society, especially in churches, that you just sit around and you wait for God to move. And it's so frustrating to me. God is not going to move in your life without you getting up and moving. God is not going to move in your life when you just sit around and do nothing. Faith without works is dead. James says it. The Lord's timing depends on you. 4 factors. 4 factors how you can help God's timing. 4 factors for how you can keep God's timing in your life moving forward. Do you guys understand something? When you get frustrated and you give up, or you let sin come into your life, or you choose to say, I'm not doing that today, I'm going to go do what I want. You just stop the Lord's timing in your life. You just put a pause button on the Lord's timing. You just hit the pause button for all these promises God wants to give you. And so many people do it every day. And you know what happens? You do it one day, it leads to a week. And then a week leads to a month. And then a month leads to a year. And before you know it, you look back and you think, what happened? Where did I go wrong? There's another verse in James. It talks about, a little bit of this gives birth to sin, which gives birth to death. It can happen so quickly. 4 factors to keep the Lord's timing moving forward in your life. Number 1, accept. Number 2, let. Number 3, work. And number 4, endure. 4 things. Accept, let, work, and endure. Number one, you have to accept the Lord's time. Number two, you have to be willing to let God work on you. You have to be willing to let God break you down. Part of getting to your hope and your future and your prosperity and these plans God has for you, part of it is letting God break you down. The Bible calls it refining. Letting your body and your soul go through the refiner's fire so you can get to these promises God has for you. Number three, work. We must work at it daily. We have to work at this daily. And finally, number four, endure. We have to endure God's timing. We have to endure the breaking. We have to endure the work. And we have to endure whatever comes our way. Because things are going to come at us. This is not something that is easy. And again, nowhere in the Bible does it say, get saved and everything falls into place. Nowhere. It just doesn't happen right away. You have to accept, let, work, and endure. When you do these things, Jeremiah 29:11 will come into fruition. Galatians 6:9. Galatians 6:9 sums up all four of these things in one verse. So let's not get tired of doing what is good. At just the right time, we will reap a harvest of blessing if we don't give up. I mean, let's break the verse down. So let's not get tired of doing what is good. That is working. That is enduring, right? That is going through the work daily, going through the endurance. Let's not get tired of doing what is good. The verse goes on to talk about at just the right time, we will reap a harvest of blessing. At just the right time. That's accepting the Lord's time. That's letting God break you down and build you back up to get to you this point. What is the point? A harvest of blessing. Think about a farmer who plants corn. What if he just planted one corn stalk? Would he be blessed? He'd have a few ears of corn. But he doesn't. He plants rows upon rows, hundreds of acres of corn. And at the right time in the season, he produces a harvest. Not just a couple of corn stalks or a couple of ears of corn, but a harvest, a bounty of corn. And that's what this verse promised you. If you accept God's time, if you let God do the work, if you work at it daily and you endure all this daily, you will reap a harvest. Not just one little blessing, a harvest of blessing. Again, it goes back to Jeremiah 29:11. No harm, prosperity, hope, and a future. God's not here just to give you one little blessing and say, I'm moving on to the next person. He promises this to everybody. And his promises are full of abundant blessings. That verse ends with one more reminder. If we don't give up, accept, let, work, endure, all four of those are important. Number 4, if you had to pick one that's the most important, enduring, that's probably it. Twice in that verse, it says, let's not get tired of doing what is good. And then it ends with saying, don't give up. In the middle of that's the blessing. The blessing's going to be there. But you have to work and you have to endure. And again, it's where so many people get lost. Because they get on this path and then something comes around. They get knocked off the path. Somebody comes around. They get stuck. They get tripped up. They get easily distracted. And they're no longer walking in God's will. They're now walking in their own will. You have to work at this daily. We talked about it 2 or 3 weeks ago. Press into the Lord. Hebrews 12:1. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a huge crowd of witnesses to the life of faith, let us strip off every weight that slows us down, especially the sin that so easily trips us up. There it is. And let us run with endurance the race God has set before us. Let us strip off every weight that slows us down. How do you do that? By letting God break you. We are born into this world sinners. We are born with evil issues in our heart. Well, I thought you said God. God created us. He created us amazingly. He gave us so many things. But because of Adam and Eve, we were born into sin. That's why we have to choose. See, again, we talked about this. This has been a theme now for weeks. You can't sit around and wait for God to move. It's our choice. God gives us free will. We have to choose to accept God's plans and to let Him break us down and to do the work daily and to endure in it. Hebrews 12:1 says that. Let us strip off every weight. God needs to break you of your bad habits. God needs to break you of your sinful habits. But you have to choose to do that. You have to be willing to let God do that. Constantly. I have people who will call me up and who will talk to me and who will, listen, they want to move forward. God bless them. But there are things that are keeping them stuck. And I tell them I tell everybody the same thing. Get on your knees and ask God to break you. It is a scary prayer, but it is a necessary prayer. Again, this ministry is built on strengthening people and encouraging them. This ministry is built on seeing people move forward. I don't want to see people stuck. I want to see everybody that God puts in this ministry, whoever I come across, whoever I come in contact with, whoever God puts in my life, I want to see Jeremiah 29:11 come through in their life. But the only way to do that is to continue to move forward. The only way to do that is to choose these things, to choose to live for God, to choose to let God work on you, to choose to let God break you, to choose daily to work at this, and to choose daily to endure. It's not going to be easy. Again, nowhere in the Bible does it say it's going to be easy. But if we let God work in us, if we choose to live our lives in God's will, we have these amazing promises in Jeremiah 29:11 that are going to come to fruition. God will break you down accordingly, but you have to be willing to let him. And this is where testimonies come into play. I can't tell you, some of these people that I tell, hey, let God break you. They come back at me a month later, they're like, I'm so happy. I've never been this happy in my life. I don't know where my anger went. Because you asked God to do it. If you don't ask God to change you, if you don't ask God to help you, if you don't ask God to fix you or wipe out the crap in your life, he's not going to do it. You have to be willing to do it. I can't stress that enough. Let us strip off every weight that slows us down. Your sin, what you want to do, is slowing you down. It's slowing down your journey. Especially the sin that so easily trips us up. And boy, we're going to talk about that over the next couple weeks. Because guess where the majority of sin comes from? The people in our lives. God's timing. Again, God's timing. Accept it. Let him work on you. Choose to work daily with the Lord. And choose to endure. Romans 5 verses 3 through 4. Romans chapter 5 verses 3 through 4. We can rejoice when we run into problems and trials, for we know that they help us develop endurance. The Bible is beautiful. And endurance develops strength of character. Strength, character that strengthens our confident hope of salvation. Rejoice when we run into problems and trials. There will be problems. You will be tested. There will be trials. And this is when the work and the endurance comes into play. You can't just give up. You can't say, oh, there's another roadblock. I'm done. It goes back to Galatians. Don't get tired of doing what is good. At the right time, you will receive your reward. Part of the breaking is dealing with problems and trials. And those come within the framework of God's timing. It's a process. It's not a snap your fingers thing and get it now. You have to let God work on you. And you have to accept his time. Listen, 4 years ago I started this. I would have loved on week number 2 to be preaching in front of 10,000 people. I've said it before. 10,000 people doesn't scare me. I'll get in front of a huge crowd. But God doesn't care about what I want right now. He needs to get me to that point. Is that where I'm going? I don't know. Hopefully. God definitely has a plan for this ministry. We can clearly see that. But I have to be willing to be in my basement every week, to not have good lighting, to not have a producer, to do this all on my own. I have to be willing to let God work in me. He's going to get me to where he wants me. But the process needs to take place. There are things in my life, just like you, that God is working on. You have to let him work, and you have to keep within his time frame. Philippians 4:13. This is where you get encouraged. For I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. When you run into problems, when you run into trials, when you run into people who don't like how you're living, God is with you. It doesn't say I can do some things. It doesn't say there are a couple things I can do. For I can do all things, thank you, God, through Christ who gives me strength. All things. You are not alone. You will not be alone on this journey. Deuteronomy 31:8. Do not be afraid or discouraged, for the Lord will personally go ahead of you. My goodness, what an incredible promise. He will be with you. He will neither fail you nor abandon you. God will personally go ahead of you. It's been 4 years. I have yet to go to a church and preach. I have yet to go be an evangelist somewhere. But that's what I believe God has me on. He's going to get me there. And when I get frustrated, when I can't see what's going on ahead of me, when I'm mad that these preachers won't call me up and say, hey, come to my church, God's already out there. He's already down the road. He's already there making a way for me. And He promises that to you. When you get discouraged, when you get upset, when you can't see the finish line, God's already there. He's paving the road. The road is paved. It might look like there's thorn bushes and rocks and all this other junk, but God has already cleared your path. He will be with you. He will never fail you nor abandon you. He will never fail you nor abandon you. The same God that wants to see you prosper, the same God who does not want you harmed, the same God who promised you hope and a future is ahead of you, paving the way, never leaving you nor abandoning you. You have to choose to continue to go down that road. You have to choose to continue to move forward. Next week, we are going to talk about the people in our life who trip us up. It is going to be a series. I might start it Monday night. Stay tuned to the Disconnected page to see. It's going to be a 3 or 4 part series, and I might just do it all in 1 week. 3 nights, 4 nights in a row. It's going to be tough. But it's something we need to hear. I ask that God be with you during this week. Press in to God. Accept, let, work, and endure. You will be blessed. Your life will be changed. You will get closer to God's promises. May the Lord be with you. I love you. More importantly, God loves you. God bless you. Good night.